Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with the next installment of my 1 week 1 palette, and I did actually decide to go with a palette that is relatively new in my collection. This is the Huda Beauty Gold Obsessions palette. It's also my first time ever trying Huda Beauty, so that was really exciting. But before we jump into this palette, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. But let's just start talking about my views on this palette. So this is what the palette looks like. The outer packaging is really nice. I do like it, and the palette itself is actually smaller than I expected. Like I said, never tried anything from Huda Beauty before, but it's definitely smaller than the Colourpop 9 pans, quite a lot actually, and it's just a really good size. And I feel like the layout of this is perfect because you don't have any space wasted, and yeah, it's a really pretty palette when it comes to packaging. So let's jump into the shades. As you can see, this is what the palette looks like. It is very kind of mauve toned when it comes to the mattes, and then the shimmers are, I would say, also mauve but then leaning on gold. So obviously it is the Gold Obsession, and all of the shimmers I would say is kind of like a version of gold, so either like a yellow gold or green gold, or even like a rose gold or white gold. So that is definitely the theme of the palette, and I feel like these mattes, the mauve mattes, are very common for Huda Beauty. I feel like she puts those in most of her palettes, so if you do own a lot of her palettes, this might be quite repetitive, but like I said, this is my first palette I'm trying of hers. So let's just jump into the swatches. I have swatched out the palette right here, so we are going from the lightest color, or like the first color up here, all the way down to the 9th color. When it comes to the variety of the palette, some of these shimmers are quite similar. My favorite in the palette is definitely some of the ones that I'm wearing today, which is this green gold here, as well as this really bright yellow gold down at the bottom. But I do like the mattes as well, and mattes perform really well. Then the shimmers are quite kind of varying. Some of them perform super well. The two that I mentioned, the more kind of brighter gold, are really easy to apply, and I feel like they perform quite well. The shade that is the best performing is the 3rd shade right here. It's just super chunky and glittery, and I feel like it blends away super easy. So with that one I did have to use the glitter glue, otherwise it just kind of dusted away, and that is the shade up here, as you can see. The other two shimmers that are a bit more tricky to work with are these two down at the bottom. So these two, which I have swatched out right here, so kind of like the almost like silvery gold as well as the rose gold shade. Those two are quite chunky as well, and are a bit harder to work with, but they are definitely easier than the 3rd shade in the palette. Overall, I do really like the color scheme of this palette. It's a really nice kind of everyday palette if you do like gold tones, but even if you don't, I mean, you probably shouldn't get this palette if you don't like golds, but you do have some more kind of almost champagne shades to even it out with if you don't always want to wear those super bright gold. But before we jump into kind of more feedback on the actual palette, I want to go through all of the looks that I did as I normally do. So I have written them all down in my notes on my phone, so I'm going to start kind of going through them. The first look I did was kind of like a golden focus look, and I started off with the 6th shade, which is this one right here in the crease as well as on the lower lash line. Then I ended up using shade number 2, which is this lighter matte here, just to blend everything out in the crease. I deepened everything up with the dark brown in the outer corner, and then on my lid I decided to go with this super bright gold down here, and then for my inner corner I used the 1st shade up in the corner. I did really like this look, and in a way it is quite similar to what I'm wearing today, although on majority of my lid I am wearing the middle shade, which I'm going to talk about later, but it is quite a similar look because I am wearing those bright golds. And obviously with the palette you only have 3 mattes, so the mattes are going to be quite similar each day, but that is the first look. For the second day I wanted to do kind of like a smoky eye, or like a dark brown all over my lid, and then topping it off with one of the shimmer shades. So how I created that is I decided to take shade number 4, which is this deepest brown right here, and I put that all over my crease as well as all over my lid, so I kind of patted that up on everywhere, and then just blended it out a bit. And then to help it blend out even further, I kind of mixed the other two mattes and just blended everything out to make it more seamless. Then for like my inner and center lid, I decided to take this kind of greenish gold here in the middle, which is a stunning shade. It's probably my favorite shade in this whole palette, and I just topped that on top of the deep brown. And then for my inner corner, I decided to go with this shade right here, which actually didn't work that well for in the corner because, as you can see, it has quite a deep base, although the shimmer in it is quite light. So day number 3, I wanted to play around with the mattes in the palette because although this is a really shimmery heavy palette, I do try to do an all matte look in my 1 week wear palette because I feel like it just kind of shows the variety of a palette. So this time I decided to take shade number 6, which is the medium matte brown, all over the lid as well as in the crease. I took shade number 4, which is this deep brown in my outer corner, and then on my inner corner I took the first shade here again. So it was basically just a free shadow look with this one all over the lid, this one in the outer corner, and then this one in my inner corner. So it was really pretty look. I did quite like it, and this medium matte here is a stunning tone, and I feel like it works really, really nice as an all over lid shade if you just want to go for an all matte look. So for day number 4, I wanted to do something that is completely different for me. I wanted to kind of play around with the shimmers because I was getting a bit tired of using the same mattes over and over again. So what I started off doing was I actually took this lightest shade right here in my crease. Kind of wanted to work on the shimmers, so I took this shade right here and I patted that on my inner lid as well as my inner crease. So I did pack it on quite heavily on the lid, but I kind of did tap it on top of that matte in my crease just to blend that shimmer up further than I normally do. And then in my outer corners, or like outer lid, sorry, I took this really nice golden shade down here and I basically did the same thing and put it on the lid as well as blending it up a little bit in my crease as well. Then I felt like it was very kind of shimmer heavy, which the look was, but I used to kind of bring it down a little bit. I decided to take this really, really deep brown right here, and I used that in my outer corner as well as on a liner, as a liner, and then slightly as well blended on my lower lash line. And then I finished the whole look off with using this first shade here again in my inner corner. I did quite like this look, but like I said, it was very, very different for me, and I don't really do these types of looks normally, but it was fun to play around with, and I did want to just let the shimmers in this palette shine. So for day number 5, I wanted to do a bit more of a kind of winged out look. So what I started off by doing was just placing some tape going out of my outer corners just to get that wing shape. And I started using shade number 6, which is this matte here, in my crease as well as my outer corner. And then I just used this deep brown here all the way out just to deepen it up a tiny bit more. And I also put this on my lower lash line. Then to just blend everything out a bit and make it more smooth, I did use this lighter shade up here. And then for my lid, over like a cut crease base, I decided to go with shade number 3, which is this one right here. I did quite like this look as well. I do like doing those winged shapes, and I do like the shade, like I said, on the lid, but it did take a lot of building up because it is a bit trickier to work with, and I'm really, really happy that I did put it over like a wet kind of cut crease base, because without that it would not have stuck. So I definitely recommend you using some sort of base when you use this shade, because it is, like I said, a bit trickier to work with. Then let's move on to my look that I made yesterday. I started off again with this brown here, which is the kind of one that I use most of the time to start off the look with. So I put this in my crease, and I also used this for my lower lash line. Then what I did is I took the deepest brown here again, and I used that on my outer corner. And then, just to make everything really simple, I decided to take the first shade right here, which is kind of like a pink to gold duochrome all over my lid as well as my inner corner. This was a really simple look, but I did actually have an interview this day, so I just wanted to keep it kind of professional and simple, and I was really happy with the look that I created. And then let's move on to the final look, which is what I am wearing on my eyes today. So I'm just going to scooch a bit closer to the camera so you can see what my eyeshadow looks like. So you can see here, this is what my eyeshadow ended up looking like. And again, I started off with this mauve kind of shade here, all the way up in my crease, and I also put a little bit in my outer corner. I deepened everything up with the deep brown here. As you can see, I'm wearing that on my outer corner as well as my lower lash line. Then for my lid, I started off by taking this middle shade, which is my favorite shade in the palette. I packed this on my kind of middle of the lid and also kind of on the inner part of my lid a tiny bit. But then what I ended up doing is I finished off the look with this brighter gold, just all like furthest in my inner corner. But then on my actual inner corner, I did use this first shade here again, because I just found that that is the one that works the best on my skin tone. And then also, before I forget, I did actually use this last shade here as well on my lower lash line, just to blend into that deep brown. So those were all of the looks that I created with this palette over the last week. I did quite enjoy wearing this, but I feel like towards the end I started getting a little bit tired of this, and I think that is because a lot of the shades are semi-similar. They're not the exact same, but they are kind of leaning very similar. And also you have that really limited amount of mattes. I do like this palette and I am happy that I picked it up, but it is a tiny bit more trickier to work with than some of my other palettes, just because some of the shades don't perform the very best. But then you also have shades like all of the mattes, I would say, perform really well, and then like the kind of brighter colors are super pigmented and easy to apply. So it is kind of like a hit and miss palette, I would say. I can't really compare it to any other Huda Beauty palettes because I haven't tried any other, but I feel like it is in line from what I've heard with her palettes, that some kind of palettes and shades are very kind of miss, but also some of them are super good. So I feel like this palette kind of summarizes her brand in total, and hopefully you can see that I think this is only like 9 shades in here, and I used quite a lot of them a few times. I have actually started getting a few dips in a few shades, which is quite exciting, and it is starting to feel quite used. And overall I'm really happy that I put this into my 1 week 1 palette, but I am going to be quite excited to put this away. So if you are someone who is looking into buying this, like I said, I would recommend it. If you're someone who has a lot of gold shades in your collection, I don't think this would be the one that I would recommend, but I do love mauve tones, which is kind of why I was drawn towards this palette, because you do have those mauve mattes, and also I was really keen to try these kind of brighter golds like I mentioned. And I would also say that if those are the ones that are pulling you towards this palette, I would say pick it up. But if you are not looking to use the lighter shimmers more than the kind of brighter ones, I would say maybe give it a skip, because some of them, like I said, don't perform the very best. But there you guys, was all for this video. I do really hope you enjoyed it, and I did mention in my community tab that I will actually start making the votes for the next 1 week 1 palette in there. So instead of kind of introducing the 2 options that I have for next month now, I will post maybe in a few weeks, maybe even like next week, about what palettes I should do for my next 1 week 1 palette. So look out for that in my community tab, and other than that, I really hope you're having an amazing day, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye!